He continued, I have not lived alone these past 5 months. I have dwelt in the spirit of prayer, of supplication, of faith, and of determination. You are listening to Saints in the South. All right, everyone. This is season 2, episode 99.
99.
That's right. We're going to party like it's 1999, right?
1999. Actually, that's, like 1900 more away from here. Yeah. So we'll get there.
Well, hey, we are Saints in the South, representing saints everywhere, and we are your source for gospel growth and good times. Y'all go ahead and hit those subscribe buttons on those platforms such as YouTube, your podcast platforms, Spotify, Pandora, Google, Apple, all those good ones.
All of them.
That's right. And if you enjoy listening or watching, please take the opportunity and share this with your friends and family. We'd greatly appreciate it. This week, we are in sections 137 through 138, and the title is The Vision of the Redemption of the Dead. So, Uncle Andrew, what you got?
So, we're kind of actually backtracking to Kirtland Temple almost being finished.
Yep.
A few months before it was completely finished, January of 1836. Joseph Smith, there with the first press, he went on kind of the upper level of the Kirtland Temple. It was kind of a little office area. So they were up there. Joseph had his dad. Oliver Cowdery was there. I believe Bishop Edward Partridge was there also. But anyways, they discuss, have a good time, and then this came about, a great, marvelous vision, of what we'll learn today in section 137. Mm-hmm. So
Very good.
So right before the temple was built, that you got to remember a lot of things were happening before that, preparing Brother Joseph. Priesthood was already restored, and the temple was about to be dedicated and all that fun stuff. And then a new revelation, or not revelation, new details.
Right.
Right.
Very good.
Yeah. So
very good. Yep. So this is where he has that. He had questions. I know previously about what would happen to his brother Alvin, right?
Yeah.
I know that. I know early on in life, soon after Alvin had passed away, one of the preachers, one of the local preachers, had told him that his Alvin would not be saved, because he hadn't been baptized and so forth. So. I think this vision here provides a great comfort, 137 to Joseph and everything.
So. So Joseph's mother, it was her minister at the funeral. Joseph Smith Sr., Joseph's dad, was furious.
Yeah,
was furious that the minister
told his wife that.
Yeah, I mean, they said he was going to hell.
Right.
Alvin was going to hell at the funeral.
Yeah, at the funeral.
And I mean, he was furious.
He's probably fighting mad, right? Ready.
Yeah, because even Joseph Smith Jr., he really looked up to Alvin. He actually said Alvin was probably the most noblest brother. I mean, he was just a really great guy, and for a preacher to say that, they just didn't.
That's not very comforting in a time when you need comfort.
Yeah. But that was kind of the way of thinking then also, now with the knowledge and more light we have now, it's like, but that was but Joseph Smith Sr. was a smart guy. He was kind of preparing his son,
this is one of the reasons Joseph Smith Sr. didn't go to any churches.
Right.
That's, partly he thought, I mean, in a way, rightly so at the time, because he couldn't feel that. He believed in the New Testament. He believed in the Bible, Old Testament. You say they read it religiously with the family. I think he was looking for that, just like a lot of them back then were looking for that New Testament church, that how it was set up when Jesus was there. And he just didn't get that from what he saw.
Right.
Mostly, and so that's why he really didn't. And I'm sure that didn't help the situation.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
So,
yep. Well, any of the verses in 137 jump out to y'all at all, or I think it's cool how Joseph, how not only does he see Alvin, right, in spirit, he also sees his parents there as well, but his parents were still living.
Yeah.
And everything. So
I like the order of people that he says, I see Adam, Abraham, and my father and my mother and my brother Alvin. I just thought that was interesting. You know, they're standing there with some greats, you know, with Adam and Abraham standing there. And I think for Joseph, if you think about it, that's the beginning to the end for him, you know, of his timeline.
Right.
For us, if you know, you go back to Joseph's time, that's a long time ago for us from there till now. But for Joseph, it was from Adam till then. So he saw the people from Adam all the way up to the people that were current in his life. So that was the entirety of the world for him.
That's right.
And so I think that's interesting, you know, why he mentioned those people.
Right.
You know, Abraham or Adam, obviously first, and then Abraham, and of course right on up. So I thought it was interesting.
And Andrew had mentioned just a bit ago about how the kind of the current thinking at the time, or a popular thinking, was that, you know, all those who weren't saved or baptized, that, you know, their destination was hell. But here we were introduced to the I say not introduced, but kind of as far as at the time, verse 7, thus came the voice of the Lord unto me, saying, all who have died without a knowledge of this gospel, who would have received it if they had been permitted to tarry, shall be heirs of the celestial kingdom of God. And then he goes on and kind of explains that a little more.
You know, at the time, as we mentioned, at the time, most churches didn't believe that at all. If you died without the gospel, you died without baptism. What do they say about, you know, Alvin? He's going to hell. You're going to hell if you don't. And so for this to come about, it really perplexed Joseph, because we got to remember, this is before he received, or, you know, had Doctrine and Covenants, you know, what was it, 130? I mean, obviously we're in 137, but before
76.
Yeah, about the baptisms for the dead and things. He hadn't learned that stuff, is what I'm getting to. So he hadn't learned those things yet. And so for him to see that, it really perplexed him, because he thought, well, this isn't the generalized idea of what I've grown up with, nor have we had any instruction on how that happens, but it's there and I see it, and that's a comfort. You know, that's a good thing. So, but yeah, this is before he received any instruction on baptism for the dead or anything. And it just goes to show that all those things are in place already for the Lord. Right. But for us, it's line upon line, precept upon precept. I think that's interesting also, as you see that, you know, it's one of the things that stood out to me.
Well, very good. Well, moving on, 80 years
80
in time.
Years later. Yeah, however long it was.
1918. This 138 given on October 4th, 1918. But the cool thing about this section here is, as we'll learn, that there were a lot of things that led to, and I think this is really common for Revelation, and really an example for us, is that we shouldn't expect just to receive revelation on the spot, right? It takes a lot of time, a lot of investment in receiving personal revelation. And so we'll see that that took place here with Joseph F. Smith. But to provide a little more context, we got some information on Susa Young Gates. Y'all know who that is?
Susa Young Gates.
I don't.
Daughter of Brigham Young, the great Brigham Young, and everything. And so I'll just try and kind of touch on some highlights here. But Susa Young and Joseph F. Smith, they were friends, kind of growing up and everything. Okay. And she spent a lot of time over at the Smiths' home, and kind of vice versa and so forth. But she was a big proponent in family history work, and not only family history work, but just women's work in general. You know, the church has been accused a lot of being a heavy patriarchal type religion and church, right? Mm-hmm. And not really including the women and so forth. But Susa Gates, she was going to women conferences overseas and stuff back in her day. So it says, Susa could hardly have done any more than she went on to do for the cause of family history and temple work. She wrote countless newspaper and magazine articles, taught class after class, and took the message on the road to many states and wards. She visited genealogical libraries in the eastern United States and England and corresponded with genealogists from many other countries, seeking greater knowledge and expertise. She served on the general board of the Relief Society, where she succeeded in having lessons on genealogy incorporated into curriculum. She published a 600-page reference book on surnames and contributed frequently to a new magazine devoted to genealogical research. With all this effort, she also found time to serve for decades as a temple ordinance worker. Susa's work was integral to the establishment of family history as a focus for Latter-day Saints.
Wow.
So she was a huge advocate for family history work. A couple other things. Says that despite the accomplishments, Susa often felt that she was waging an uphill battle. She believed that too many Latter-day Saints exhibited a very general indifference toward genealogy and temple work. It's kind of something that kind of continues today.
Yeah, I was going to say,
We've
still
seen that
there
thing before. That's right. So she says, not even an angel from heaven could induce some of these club women and these successful businessmen to set aside a portion of their time for temple work.
Wow.
She wrote to a friend.
Wow.
So she was committed to
I'd venture to say she's got the same attitude today, probably. I mean, as far as like just looking down on the world and saying, man, I mean, I'm sure she sees that
right.
It has definitely lit up, and I think there is a more of a fire there now for genealogy and things. But
right,
I sometimes see that there's more outside the church. I see almost more activity from other people that aren't even members of the church, more than we do in our own church. And you know, and
I wonder if we take it for granted.
Yeah,
I think so.
We take it for granted, and we count on that.
Well,
those other two guys or girls to do
all
the
work.
work.
On everybody else doing it.
And I'm going to tell you something. At least sometimes the mindset that I have is it's going to get done. You know, we got the millennium. We got and it's the wrong attitude.
Right.
It's the wrong attitude. It's not the right way to do it. But I do take comfort in that, knowing that it is going to get done. Right. But by who? It's got to be done by me. You know, it's got to be done by us. And so it's easy to get caught up in that, knowing that there's a plan, everything's going to happen. And so it's easy sometimes to push that stuff off to the side, you know, but that's not the right attitude to have, because we're the ones that have to get it done.
Right.
So,
and one last bit of information with Susa Young Gates here. So with this Revelation 138, you know, it wasn't I think his goal, President Smith's goal, was to be able to share this at General Conference, which he ended up not being able to do, and it ended up being published. So before this went to the church and to the world, President Smith shared this document with Susa Young Gates, and in his home, and let her read it. And let me share with you real quick what she her thoughts. It says, so what happened was Susa and her husband were invited over to the Smith's home, and, you know, President Smith, he's in bad health and so forth. So it says, as the Gateses visited with members of the Smith family, President Smith summoned Susa to come into his room. She says, I comforted him all I could in his severe illness. He told her, you are doing a great work, greater than you know anything about. After a few minutes, President Smith and Susa were joined by Jacob and Julina and others, presumably the Smith family members. And President Smith gave Susa a paper to read. It was a transcript of the account of his vision. How blessed, oh, how blessed I am to have the privilege, Susa wrote in her journal that night, to be permitted to read a revelation before it was made public, to know the heavens are still open. Susa's description of the vision highlighted this aspect she found most compelling. In it, he tells of his view of eternity, the Savior when he visited the spirits in prison, how his servants ministered to them. He saw the prophet and all his associate brethren laboring in the prison houses. Mother Eve and her noble daughters engaged in the same holy cause. Long an advocate for women's causes, Susa rejoiced at the specific mention of women in the Revelation, grateful to have Eve and her daughters remembered, and she rejoiced in the Revelation's affirmation of the work on behalf of the dead. Above all, she wrote, to have this given at a time when our temple work and workers and our genealogy need such encouragement. No words of mine can express my joy and gratitude. Think of the impetus this revelation will give to temple work throughout the church, she later wrote to a friend.
Mhm.
So that's pretty cool to be able to actually read a revelation that's about to be published to the world,
Right.
and to the church specifically and so forth. So it just kind of goes to show you how close he and Susa were.
And the impetus that gives us today. I mean, that section still gives that to us.
Right.
I mean, because I read it, when I read it, I remember reading that in the temple, like, you know, how you wait before you go in to do endowments or you know, whatever, and you wait in between there, and they have the scriptures there that you can read. And I remember opening it up. This has been 10 or 12 years ago, but I remember opening it up and reading that section and thinking, obviously, number one, it's a little more modern. It's 1918, modern, you know, over 100 years ago still, but at the time, you know, it's a little more modern. So you think of it as, you know, not just, I don't know why in my mind I have those Joseph Smith times and then everything else. That's the way it feels to me sometimes in the church. The church history to me is Joseph Smith, Brigham Young time, and then now us. That's what it kind of feels like.
Right.
You forget about the middle, you know, all those Heber J. Grant type era and stuff like that. But you know, but you have this revelation, this vision that was given, and it's such a clear vision. Like it's so easy to transport into that vision because there's so much detail, I guess is what I'm getting to. Even section 76, as we talked about before, there's a lot of detail there too. But this one, for some reason, really feels like I could be standing there with him, like seeing exactly, because he explained it so well. I don't know what it is about it, but it's such a clear vision. And the other thing is the reason that these two visions, when we talk about 76, which 76, as we keep referencing, talks about the kingdoms, you know, talks about the celestial, telestial, and terrestrial kingdoms. And this one, this section 138 talks about the spirit world. So that's the missing link between our world and those kingdoms, is this. And so it's almost like now you have a complete
Provides that bridge
understanding. Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Of where we're going, what's going to happen, you know. And so it's very, very, very cool stuff.
Yeah.
Probably one of my favorite sections of Doctrine and Covenants 138. I would have to say.
Absolutely.
And how we can liken it to our day today.
Yeah.
You know, so President Joseph F. Smith was a tough soldier.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, this is 1918. So let's backtrack. Let's put on some socks and let's go back to 1918.
Okay, here we go.
You might be wearing one sock because it was pretty tough. During the 1918 is when the Great War happened, which we know it as World War I. A lot of people were dying. On top of that, the Spanish influenza, a big pandemic, was happening worldwide. And the month that this was revealed was the deadliest month in U.S. history. I think over 195,000 people died in the United States. And so this was on President Joseph F. Smith's mind. He lost 11 kids. He was 5 years old. 5 years old, a little boy who loved his dad, Hiram. You know, Hiram Smith was his dad, and Joseph Smith was his uncle. He was 5 years old when Joseph Smith the prophet and his daddy died. His mom died years later. Lost 2 wives, 11 kids. Lost
he lost 11 kids.
Lost 11 children.
Wow. So
and then his son, who was becoming a great leader in the church, died suddenly. I think his name was Hiram. Don't quote me on that. But
I think his name was. I'm pretty
sure it was. I'm pretty confident.
Hiram was. Yeah, he passed away.
But it was suddenly. It wasn't like it was.
Was he not?
He had like an eruption of.
Wasn't he also an apostle?
He was.
I believe so. Yeah. So
Hiram
he was becoming.
And Joseph Fielding Smith were both apostles at the time when Joseph F. Smith received this revelation.
So
I think.
No, you say
no.
He passed away.
He passed away.
He'd already passed away.
Yeah, so he already experienced that loss.
Oh, okay, I got you.
Yeah,
and
so
then this came about.
Yeah,
however, though, I think they were both apostles though beforehand, because I remember reading it.
He was a prominent leader.
Yeah,
and his son, just died suddenly. So President Joseph, exactly. So President Joseph F. Smith experienced sorrow. Experienced not only in his personal life. He saw it as a prophet worldwide. He saw it in his own country. He saw it globally. He was with this great war happening and the Spanish influenza, all this and that, it was weighing heavily on his mind, and he was prepared more than, I can even imagine just all these events that has happened and is happening at the time in his life, and how humble he was to receive this revelation. And we can somewhat liken that today with the pandemic that's happened in our lives with the COVID-19, in a sense that the Lord hasn't forgot us. We have to, the Lord didn't forget the people then, and with this revelation happening, and that we could find comfort and joy through the gospel of Jesus Christ. It can be easier said than done sometimes. I'm just saying that like it's nothing, but we could find that joy.
That's right. That's right.
If we listen to the modern day prophet, President Nelson, finding joy in what he says and find those little, having the spirit.
Yeah. Well, I don't think death for anybody that has death cinnamon close, no matter how strong your testimony is, how strong you're on the gospel, it's always going to be extremely hard. And President Smith, he does exemplify this in that he said after his son Hiram Smith passed away, he said, "My soul is rent, my heart is broken. Oh God, help me." And this is the prophet speaking that way. So
he was tough. I like to say tough old soldier. He marched on just think what he was going through as a person living during that time. Put yourself in 1918 with the Spanish influenza. What's this virus happening, killing everybody?
Right.
Now a great war. What's happening? Is the Savior coming tomorrow? And this revelation, how comforting it was to the saints and to the world, and for us today, so, how for me, I could go to the scriptures and find comfort and joy, but also I need to remember I could go to my modern day prophet today and find comfort and joy.
Yeah, right.
Easier said than done. We have many. That. We need that because there's people who disagree today, and easier said than done. You have to really have that desire to have the Spirit and listen. Right. So,
I thought it was interesting as well that we had mentioned that he didn't share this revelation in conference. But shortly after he did, however, he did end up speaking in conference, actually made a surprise visit. They were not expecting President Smith to speak at this particular conference, but he ended up gaining the strength to do so. And in some of the things that he shared, he says, I dare not attempt to enter upon many things that are resting upon my mind this morning, he said, and I shall postpone until some future time, the Lord's being willing, my attempt to tell you some of the things that are in my mind and that dwell in my heart.
Wow.
He continued, I have not lived alone these past 5 months. I have dwelt in the spirit of prayer, of supplication, of faith, and of determination. Speaking of your toughness there. And I have had my communication with the Spirit of the Lord continuously. So I love this part where he says, I have not lived alone these past 5 months. Yeah. He's close to the Spirit. He has been primed and he's dove into the scriptures. He says that he was studying in 1 Peter. Yeah. Right. Where the Spirit speaks to those that are dead, pondering. Exactly. So he's heavily invested in trying to understand and seek comfort from God. And then that's where we all receive this blessing of section 138 because of his personal spiritual investment there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And after it was less than 2 months later, he passed away.
Yeah. I was going to say he was himself close to death. Death was close to him too. Yeah. So death all around. He was surrounded by death, but having said that, he was surrounded, as you said, by the Spirit of the Lord. Very, 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 very cool stuff.
So were there any of the scriptures that y'all wanted to share?
Man, all of them.
Yeah, I mean,
this one, yeah, I mean, this one to me, this one stands out big time. I mean, just to start it off, so he's sitting there in his room and he's pondering the scriptures, right? I love this because this is a man where you go, prophet of the Lord, number one. Number two, he's about to die. Let's just, we're not far from, I'm sure he knows this. I mean, how you just probably know. I don't feel that way.
I mean, his health was really bad.
I mean, he knows he's on death's door, I'm sure. And so, but here's this man still. He's going to be pondering over the scriptures. He's reading the scripture. He's pondering the scripture.
He's reflecting.
Exactly.
Powerful verbs.
In other words, I guess what I get from this and what I glean from this is that there's no time to rest. We don't merit any time to rest here, right? I mean, and taking into context what I'm saying, but I don't mean to run faster than you're able and all these kind of things. But what I'm getting to is the basics are always there. We should always be reading our scriptures. We should be, whatever we can do. And he's doing that, he's, that toughness, to the end, enduring to the end. Right. But that's what he's doing. He's sitting there, he's thinking about the scriptures and he's thinking about the atoning sacrifice of the Son of God. So it wasn't that he went to necessarily saw First Peter and he starts reading that. It could have just been where he was reflecting through the scriptures and then it brought him to First Peter about that. Because
I actually think that's the way he described it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is that he didn't necessarily go and really start just studying that particular topic, but he said he was kind of led to that.
That's true.
Which is how pondering works.
Yeah. In verse 5, he says, while I was thus engaged, he says, my mind reverted to the writings of the Apostle Peter. So he went to that. He was more thinking of how many people have died and how many people have not accepted the gospel yet. And even those that were preached the gospel, some didn't accept, which also gives me comfort to know that when we try with our friends and family to share the gospel, we got to remember sometimes that there was even people that didn't accept it from Jesus Christ himself, I mean, when he was on the earth. And so don't beat ourselves up too bad if we feel like we're failing there. We're not. So, he, of course, that leads into him talking about the spirit world and how Peter how Jesus went to the spirit world and preached to the spirits there in the spirit prison. There's a lot going on here. There's a lot of things. There's the spirit world, it talks about that. It talks about spirit prison. What is this?
And let's not get confused of the pre-mortal.
Yeah. That's a whole nother thing. This is something
people
else.
Call that some. I mean, I say people. I mean,
that would be before we live.
Before it's two different places.
Mortality, and now this is after mortality.
Two different.
Before mortality and after mortality.
Yeah.
So this is after mortality we're talking about. This is where we go after we die.
Right.
And this is what happens after we die.
Yeah.
When he talks about. I was like, what in the world?
So, and this is something that just kind of hit me. This to me, and y'all can correct me if I'm wrong or if I'm going in the wrong direction. So this is the last section of the Doctrine and Covenants, right?
Yes.
So this is the end of the restored doctrines, right, and so forth.
Right.
We've got some official declarations,
right,
but that's based on principles.
Yes.
So your policy changes and so forth. But this is almost as if the Lord is tying a little bow on everything,
like a bookend.
It really does on all on the restoration of these revelations and principles and ordinances. And how salvation of man is to come about. Yeah.
As far as the plan of salvation goes, the Doctrine and Covenants pretty much covers just about everything. And when I say that, of course, not every little detail, but it touches on all of it.
With the combination of the Book of Mormon, the Doctrine and Covenants,
right,
New and Old Testament, and everything.
That's true.
This is kind of the last little bit that fills in that gap of this with the spirit world and how all that is set up and takes place.
That is true.
So.
Because that's where we're going to wind up. We're going to wind up there, and then from there it's be judged accordingly. But there's a lot going on here. I mean, you can go into the when we speak of the spirit world and things like that, that comes from First Peter. Talking about spirit world and how Christ went there. One of the things I like is this. So how did it happen did Christ go to the spirit world prison side, or did he not go? And so we get that answer in 138. In verse 8, it says, and he, by which also, and this is in 1 Peter chapter 3, by the way, it says, by which also he went and preached into the spirits in prison. It's talking about Jesus Christ. Now, that sounds pretty straightforward. Like, okay, Jesus went into the spirits of the prison and he preached. That's what it says. Well, we get more understanding because of this section in verse 13. And who had offered, so he's talking to these people to gather together. There was an innumerable company of spirits of the just. This is where the Lord went to. He went into this part of the spirit world where there's a lot of just and righteous people, not just and righteous people, but these people were ready for resurrection. That's where these people were already. So they had a faithful testimony. These were the saints that it speaks of in Matthew chapter 27. After Jesus Christ was resurrected, many of those that were right after, he was the very first to be resurrected. Right after him, there was many of the saints that burst out of their graves and came forth. These are those people. I don't know if people's, that's a pretty cool thing to correlate those two things together, but that's these people. These are, this is Adam and Abraham and anybody great that you can think of, are in this company. And so Jesus is there with them. And it says in verse 13, and who had offered sacrifice in the similitude. This is what these people have done. They've offered sacrifice in the similitude of the great sacrifice of the Son of God, and had suffered tribulation in their Redeemer's name. So when Peter says that Jesus Christ went to the spirit prison and preached, in essence, he did, because these were the people that went there. Jesus Christ himself did not go there.
Right.
But these people did go there, and these people are in the exact similitude of Jesus Christ because they're righteous, they're just, they received their bodies now, they're going into the spirit world, and they're going to preach. And so I thought that was a pretty interesting thing there. So when Peter says it, he's not wrong. It's just we got to know exactly what he's talking about, representatives. And just like today, people that go out and they serve missions, they represent the Lord Jesus Christ. That's what they're doing. They're representing. And so was Jesus Christ in the spirit prison? Yes, to a degree he was, because he commissioned those people to go. For all
intents and purposes, he was
right. And so, and the reason he couldn't go there, it does say that also. He couldn't go because of the rebellion. He couldn't go because of the I don't know how you want to call it, but the bad spirits that were there. He couldn't be there in their presence, and but these people that he commissioned could go there and start bridging those gaps for those that wanted to repent and those that wanted to learn and accept the gospel. And
on his behalf, it's the same thing with Moses and Elias and Elijah appearing to Joseph, Peter, James, and John the Baptist. Jesus could have done all that himself, right?
Yeah,
but he sends.
But he's got
his representatives.
That's right, and it's the same. It's the same. So I just thought that was interesting. He couldn't go there where they were the rebellious and people that rejected Jesus. Basically, he couldn't go there. That was their choice, and so
very good, very good. Anything else?
I will say this. I remember one time when I was an elder quorum president, there was a little thing that happened. We were talking about these things. It might have been this section. I don't remember. It's been years ago, but one of the people, one of the elders there in class, upstanding person, still very active, great person, but he had the question and I don't want to say took offense, because that's a choice if he made or not. I couldn't tell. It's not like he ever held a grudge against me or anything, but I'd mentioned the spirit prison, and I'd mentioned about how there is a spirit prison, and that those people that go to the spirit prison aren't just evil people. So to me, there's degrees of a spirit prison, also levels. There's people that are evil, and there's also people that just didn't know about the gospel. Those people are also in a prison type setting because they're not set free yet with the truth. And so when I said that, he just really struck him as like, no way, those people aren't in prison. I said, well, the word prison is a very loose term. It encompasses a lot here. When you go to a prison today on earth, you can go to maximum security. These are the worst of the worst. And you can go to the one where the guys are in the library working. These guys aren't they might have done some things that they shouldn't have done, or maybe didn't have opportunities they should have had, or whatever it is. And this may not be a great analogy, because it doesn't mean that these people are bad that go to the spirit prison, because these people just don't have the gospel yet. And what that means is they're locked. They don't have any way to get across, because they don't have the knowledge of Jesus Christ and of his gospel restored. And so eventually they will be able to get out and go over to what we call the paradise part of the spirit world,
where they will begin participating in the missionary work and sharing and so forth.
Exactly. And so as we talk about all these things, as we stated earlier, as Andrew had said, we're not talking about before we came to earth, and we're not talking about the kingdoms of heaven after we die. We're talking about the spirit world, which is in between all those things.
Right.
So this is not, when you get to the paradise part of the spirit world, does not mean you're in quote unquote heaven. In other words, you're not living with Heavenly Father at that point. You're just in a good part of the spirit world and with righteous people, and waiting judgment and waiting to receive your glory. But yeah, there's a lot here, man. It goes into a lot of things, and it's a comfort to me. I know all of us here have lost somebody close, and it's a comfort to me to see this and know that that's where my person is, whoever that is, that's where they are. And it's like, that's a really cool thing,
Yep, absolutely. Well, there you go. Episode 99 in the books.
99.
Be sure and study your scriptures. Be sure and share this if you can. And until next time, y'all keep on striving.